Hi, I'm Frank Masiosi, and I'm here with former Mayor Jordan Glatt. We're doing interviews of all the candidates for Common Council this fall. Today we have David Dietze here with us. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much, Frank. Good to see you, Jordan. It's an honor to be in the presence of two such legends of Summit government. So
Thank you, David. So the format, as with all these, is it's going to be 20 minutes. We'll leave 2 at the end for a closing statement. And that may mean I'll cut you off at one point so we have time for that 2-minute closing statement.
it won't be the first time that I've been cut off, not since last night with my kids.
Okay. So, Jordan, would you like to kick it off with the first question?
First of all, thanks for raising your hand to run. It's a demanding job, but thank you for wanting to serve. With that said, what caused you to say you want to run for Common Council?
I came here 25 years ago. I got married to my wife by Walter Long. We've had such a great run here. My kids were born in Overlook. They've gone K through 12 here and had a wonderful experience. I also opened my business right smack in the downtown on Springfield Avenue. It's been such a great run here that I really want to give back. I also feel that due to my experience on countless nonprofits, the Board of Education, my legal experience, my financial experience, I'm very well situated. Also, with the position that I'm running for, it's only a 2-year term, so I feel that having had all that background, I can hit the ground running on day one and really make a difference and give back.
Great.
Okay. David, we have partisan elections here in Summit. Not all municipalities do. Newark, for example, does not. But we do. And so a person runs either as a Republican or as a Democrat. At the local level, as far as Summit is concerned, what do you feel is the difference between a Republican and a Democrat, if any, and how does it matter?
I don't really feel there is a difference. You know, I walk from door to door talking with neighbors. They talk about the condition of the roads. They talk about sidewalks. I'm thinking, how would a Democrat approach filling in those potholes? How would a Republican approach it? And I conclude there's really not much difference. It's really a question of studying the issues, applying your experience, and getting the job done. You know, people can get distracted by what's going on in Washington, maybe in Trenton, but I just don't think it has bearing with the issues right in front of us on Springfield Avenue and throughout Summit.
Thank you. Jordan.
Yeah. What's the one thing you'd like the public to know about you that they don't today?
Well, I guess you know, I was, you know, brought up in New Jersey. I'm originally from Mountain Lake, so I've lived my whole life in New Jersey, and I'm just so lucky because I feel Mountain Lakes is a great place to grow up. It had lakes, but no downtown. What I love about the life now is not only is it a good place for kids to grow up, but we have a jewel of a downtown. It's one of the most interesting places where you can do just about anything you want, and if you want to go into New York City, you've got that great train service right there. So I think it's my appreciation of how lucky I and my family and my neighbors are to be where we are.
You mentioned the downtown. There's a lot of talk about the downtown among the candidates. That's been true for years, and I agree with you. We have a gem of a downtown, but it's not perfect. I guess sort of 2 parts. How would you improve it, and where are the big needs? Where are the deficiencies?
Well, in terms of the big needs, it seems to me, talking with all the neighbors and friends in town, parking keeps coming up and up. People say, I would go visit West Elm. I would go to that restaurant. I just don't want to keep circling for a parking spot. You know, my first response is, what great town doesn't have a parking problem? And of course, everyone wants to park right outside the table at the restaurant, and that just isn't realistic. But I do think to ignore that there's a parking issue is wrong. I don't have any one particular situation. I'm all about the process and the approach. And so I think it's so important to collect all the data, make sure every segment of the population gets heard of, and also get very clear on the metrics we're looking at. How, if we do some sort of sprucing up of the downtown, make a change, how will you evaluate our success? And of course, we need to look at the costs. Not this year, but recurring costs going down the road, and make sure that we carefully balance it. Ultimately, I'm here to serve Summit. I'm not here to tell someone what to do, but I want to make sure all the issues are as transparent as possible. So that's part of the answer to your question.
Part of it is parking.
Part of it is parking, and part of it is to make sure we have a transparent process where every voice is heard, all costs are considered, and we are very clear in how we're going to evaluate the progress we're making. So as another example, people talking about a special type of paving on the streets. That may be a great idea, it may not be such a great idea, but what do we think it's going to accomplish? Are we going to look at an increase in restaurant traffic? Are we going to measure the number of pedestrians coming along the street? Are we going to measure the number of cars coming to zone? What are we trying to achieve? How will we know that we have achieved it? And is it worth the cost? So it's all about the process for me, but I'm certainly not, the most creative city planner out there, but I want to make sure that we employ those city planners and we evaluate it in an open and transparent manner.
Thank you.
David, there's been a lot of talk about sanctuary cities throughout the country, and we have a 13+% of our residents are Hispanic. There's a sense that some of those are undocumented. What would be your message to them?
Well, the first message is, given all the news stories and so forth, I abhor prejudice, bigotry, violence, any type of hatred. That has no place in Summit. It should have no place on the planet, but we're in control of Summit. So let's get that on the table. In terms of sanctuary city, it's kind of a loose term. I do feel that as a councilman, as a government official, you do have a duty to uphold the laws, and you don't want to flagrantly stick your thumb out at the state, at Washington, and ultimately have the repercussions there. On the other hand, I do feel by talking with Chief Weck, police officers, other government officials, that we have a very good status quo here. That basically we don't want to be bullies to people who are basically struggling here. On the other hand, if we have a major crime and it turns out that we need assistance from outside, that's probably something we want to do. But we certainly don't want to go knocking on doors or making it tough on people who are struggling in this country just because they didn't have their seatbelt fastened. So bottom line, I don't want us to be called a sanctuary city. I think the status quo works very well right now.
Thank you. Good. Union County. When Jordan was mayor and I was on council, we used to say about half your taxes go to the schools. That hasn't changed, roughly. And the other half, 50-50 between the county and the city. Now the county is up around, I believe, 29%. You can correct me on that. You're probably more current on that than I am, but I think it's 29 to 30%. And the city is down around 21%. So the county's gone up, the city's gone down, and the reason has been one has increased taxes, the other hasn't. What would you do about that problem? We get 10 cents back on the dollar, and it's really a problem.
Well, I certainly agree that's a problem. As you pointed out, over the last decade or so, the share of the municipal budget going to Elizabeth and Union County keeps growing much more rapidly than the municipal portion and the school portion. And so the scary thing is if you extrapolate those trends over the next decade, that's really going to put pressure on what's so dear to us, which is our downtown and our school system. So what do you do? I think it's really a twofold process. One is we need to get more influence on the governing board in Union County in terms of the freeholders. There's no easy solution for that. But if there is some way that we could have a representative, if, for example, instead of all 7 being voted at large, they were voted by district. So maybe Summit, New Providence, Berkeley Heights got to elect just one, at least we'd have a voice at the table. Now, I don't pretend for a moment that that's going to be easily adopted. I think we have to go back to Trent to do that. So that would at least give us a voice at the table. The other thing is the method of raising revenues. Right now, it's strictly based on real estate values. Now, I think real estate values are important. I also think it's not always easy to determine exactly what they are. And I think that many economists say a more diverse basis of evaluating financial responsibility could make a lot of sense. The problem, as I see it, is the western part of the county has the higher real estate values. The eastern part of the county has the greater share of the population. And so the smaller amount of people are paying for a larger amount of people's goodies, and by many measures, that's not fair. The other approach, of course, is let's be careful as to what they're spending money on. Is it true county services, plowing the roads, taking care of the parks, or are they going above and beyond? I was distressed the other day to read about an off-balance sheet financing technique whereby the county is going to guarantee the debt of a mind and wellness development in Roselle. And I'm thinking, what does that have to do with Summit? Now, we were told by Union County, well, not to worry about the guarantee. There's never been that type of a default in the county. And now I'm thinking, well, why are the financiers asking for the guarantee if they don't think it's necessary? So we need to also get a handle on what they're spending on. We need to get a greater share back, give them less, and I think things will be in balance. We can talk secession, it's not realistic, but we need to have more control as to what's going on in the county we reside in.
So Summit seems to always be talking about redevelopment. What are your thoughts of areas that may or may not need to be redeveloped, and for what purpose?
Well, certainly redevelopment makes a lot of sense. I mean, if we can develop our commercial ratables, that's going to give us an additional source of revenue, which is going to be able to take the pressure off the residential property taxes. In addition, of course, anytime we redevelop things, things are going to be newer, safer, more modern. Certainly, they're looking at redevelopment along the Broad Street corridor. It's controversial, but there's a lot of opportunity. Certainly, people are looking at perhaps moving the fire station to another location. Of course, we want to make sure that it's centrally located enough to serve all parts of Summit, but on the other hand, where it sits now is very key real estate. So if that were to open up and somehow we could bolster the parking right behind the post office, perhaps ultimately buy the post office out, that could be a wonderful new section of the city. So I think there are a lot of opportunities when it comes to redevelopment, and the city has a real role to play.
Great.
What do you think are the biggest things that need to be fixed in Summit, if anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, what's most important to me, of course, is the schools. 52 cents of every dollar that we spend in Summit goes to the schools. My kids went through K through 12 through the public schools. I'm a big public school advocate. That's why I spent 6 years on the Board of Ed. So although we're rated tops, our ranking has gone up, for example, from 19 to 12 in U.S. News and World Report in terms of our ranking in New Jersey. We're 50 in STEAM in the country. So, but it can always be better, and we never can be complacent. After that, I think it might be affordability. Obviously, taxes affects everyone in this wonderful city. I have my friends at the YMCA where I work out every morning. I said, do you live in Summit? They said, well, no, I actually don't live in Summit. I said, well, why not? They said, I can't afford it. I can't get a house here. And, you know, I think we could have a more diverse, interesting population if it wasn't quite so pricey. And so we need to keep our eye on that at all times. And of course, finally, the downtown. It's a great downtown, but obviously maybe a little more lively in the evening. That might be good. We're facing huge headwinds from the internet, from the mall. And somehow we have to at least facilitate a redirection of the use of our downtown space so that it is in profitable businesses which draw people in and people can work and relax and have a good time there.
Thank you.
Great. So this is right within your skill set. The city budget. How would you manage it, and can you identify any new revenue sources of ways reducing our expenses?
Yeah, great question. So we manage it carefully. I'll have to say that I think that, you know, I'm biased. I've spent 6 years on the school board, 2 years as operations chair, 3 years on the board of school estimate. I think the schools have been doing a great job managing their budget. Of course, we are limited by law to 2% annual increases. We've been under that. So I think there's the low-hanging fruit has been taken there. I think, quite frankly, the city's been doing a pretty good job. in 2014, in fact, there's actually a tax reduction. So how can we generate additional revenue sources? I think Union County. Somehow, some of the strategies that we talked about, reducing the rate of growth and the share going to Union County would make all the sense in the world. And I really don't think we're getting much back for that. So that's something that would make a lot of sense. Finally, school aid and other sources of revenue coming back from Trenton. We've been getting a paltry, $500 per student, while other towns are getting more than 10 times that. For example, Hoboken. But times have changed, but those formulas for school aid haven't. They're now tooling around in Teslas in Hoboken because of all that New York City wealth. And so I think we need to look at that. And so we need to always raise our hand to get our fair share from Trenton. Finally, I think the commercial ratables makes a whole lot of sense. For example, we were behind the 8 ball when Merck left. Fortunately, council and the town did a good job getting another blue chip tenant, Celgene, but quite frankly, they bargained us down in terms of the valuation of the property. We lost, but that process can be reversed. We can't force any new blue chip company to come in, but we have to make sure that the zoning and the attractiveness of Summit for a new company coming in is there, and so maybe we can get lucky and build up from that sense.
Great.
Well, we're getting close to the end here, and speaking of subjects that are within your area of expertise, I suspect you could talk for a long time on this, and I can only give you a minute because I want to leave time for your 2-minute wrap-up. But would you like to comment on full-day kindergarten?
Well, first I have to say that as a sitting member of the Board of Education, I can't speak for the board. It's like talking to a judge about a case that's pending. Having said that, I am fully committed to taking whatever steps can enhance student achievement. It's whatever the program is, not necessarily full-day kindergarten, if it shows a tangible advantage for students when it comes to looking at PARC, other standardized testing, college acceptances, getting 4s and 5s of APs, I want us to invest there. On the other hand, if we can't show that there's going to be a real difference, then we have to be very cautious and keep working on it.
Thank you. A closing statement.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Jordan. In closing, I am David Dietze, and I am a candidate for the at-large seat on Summit's Common Council. My reasons for running are simple. I want to give back to this great city that I've called home now for over 2 decades. My wife, Claire, and I have raised our 2 children here, Billy and Betsy, and they have taken great advantage of our wonderful public schools from grades K through 12. My agenda is clear. First, I care deeply about public education. We must keep our schools outstanding. I have deep educational experience as a 6-year veteran of our Board of Education, including as its president. I'm currently chair of the Education Committee and have chaired operations twice and policy once. Second, Summit must stay affordable. Both young and old should financially be able to live here. As both a lawyer and an internationally recognized financial planner, I believe I have the tools to analyze the difficult issues. My service on the Board of School Estimate and on countless nonprofit boards like the YMCA, Overlook Hospital, gives me the experience necessary for public sector finances. Third, I have a deep love for our downtown. I have been so lucky to operate a small business in the heart of our great downtown for nearly 25 years with 8 other employees. We must keep our downtown vibrant and lively, a fun place to work and relax. Please give me the opportunity to give back to the city I love by voting for David Dietze as your next at-large councilman on November 7th. Thank you.